Hey everyone, sorry for the mix-up if you're watching live. We had a little quick issue that we were able to fix. Thank you for our wonderful guest, Jen, for sitting through some technical issues. So welcome to this episode of Let's Chat Live. I am your host, Chris Revel. Joining me, my co-host, Robert.
Hello, how are you doing tonight?
We're excellent. So Let's Chat Live is our video podcast where we sit down with podcasters that we love and the shows we're listening to that we think you should also be listening to. And tonight we're joined by a podcast that I'm a huge fan of, the Community Rewatch podcast with Jennifer and Jen. And let's just bring it on screen because who cares about us?
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. We were talking about this briefly. So before we got on mic, for anyone who's not aware, there is a lot of community podcasts out there.
Yeah.
And it is it's incredible because it seems like once it came to Netflix, but instead of becoming like cutthroat, like competitors, you all have seemed to become friends. And, get to know each other. I now know you. I got to interview and become friends with Alex from Sixth Season in a podcast. We're doing an episode in a couple weeks with the story of community, and so maybe at some point we'll get all of you. Meet you on a call.
You gotta catch them all. Like we're just like Pokemon. Like you have to collect all of us. And there are a lot of us now. There was just a new one that popped up today, apparently. So
I love it. And the coolest thing I think about all your podcasts is that you're all doing something similar but different, and especially yours. But you're bringing the people who made the show on to the podcast, and not even just like the nobodies. Like and Alex is like friendly. It's like internet friends with Ken Jeong.
Yeah. Ken is so nice. Like I got to be on that episode with Alex because he reached out to me. Back when we were like some of the only podcasters that we knew. There was like a couple of us that started kind of around the same time. And he was like, hey, do you want to be on this interview with Ken? I kid you not. It was probably it was over 2 hours. Like all of the content didn't make it into the episode, but like Ken talked with us for like more than 2 hours. He was the nicest human being. He seriously is one of the nicest people, I think, in the business. And
he's actually famous. He's an actual bona fide celebrity.
Yes, exactly. He's even busier, I feel like, these days than Joel. Like he has more jobs than Joel does. And that's like a badge to wear, Ken.
Yeah, I mean, and they were doing the Darkest Timeline, which kind of was community related at some point.
I mean, it was community adjacent. They had their friends on, and then they would just devolve into conversations about nothing, and it was so great. It was like a highlight. It was a highlight of early pandemic for sure, because I was going stir crazy, and it was like, 2 hours worth of a podcast I can listen to on my walk. Perfect. And it's Ken and Joel, and also Ken's was a real doctor and his wife is still a doctor. So like early pandemic, that was where I was getting all my medical information from. So I was like, I'm not listening to anyone else. Like, Ken, just tell me what to do. Like, just tell me what you and your wife know.
I learned so much from him.
I know.
Did you read that story, anyone, about how Ken Jeong, maybe he'll never hear this, but he got Randall Park the vaccine because he got him into a test trial of the first through a medical study, and it turned out, and Randall Park wouldn't know this until after the fact, that he actually had the dose and not the placebo effect. I was like tweeting him like, Ken Jeong, you are a national treasure because I am a Randall Park fanatic. Love that man.
So good. I'm so glad that he's brought into like higher consciousness now because of WandaVision. I'm just thank you, everyone. Please love Kat Dennings and Randall Park as much as the rest of us have done for years.
Recently engaged Kat Dennings.
Yes, I saw that. Oh, I love her. She's so great.
Andrew WK, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty jealous of both of them, actually. It's like, I'd like to be engaged to both of you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So tell us, what was your introduction to podcasting or starting this podcast? Was this your first go around at starting a show?
Yeah. So this was fun. So it was after the Vulture reunion panel that Community did.
Yeah, that was great.
And I had started to rewatch a little bit of the show just here and there on Hulu. And then I was like, you know what, I'm going to commit to a full rewatch because it had been so long since I'd actually sat down and rewatched the show. But I was like, oh, I miss these people. And so I did. And as I did, it was literally like end of 2019. So it was like November of 2019 where I was kind of like, I really miss talking about community. Community was like a Kickstarter for me in like freelancing. Like I run my own website on the side and I had done community reviews. And they really took off because Dan Harmon had read one of them and like commented and praised it. And then people started following me. So like I watched Community for so long that I had made so many friends from it. And I was like, like if I started a podcast, like, would anybody still be interested in it? I remember tweeting it out and like all my friends and like Matt from the Community's account was like, absolutely. And so Chelsea, who's been my friend from the Community fandom for so long, was like, if you need an audio editor, let me know. And I was like, all right. So,
we're all jealous.
All right. So I was like, okay, like, let's just try this thing and do this experiment. I legitimately, given how little Community like was talked about while it was on the air, I was for sure certain that there would be no one who really listened to the podcast. I was like, the 5 people that still watch the show. And then it just kind of like, we found that I was not the only, I was like, I'm not the only one that is talking about the show. And I've made a lot of new friends from it and met some great people. And I've like gotten to talk to the people I was talking to 10 plus years ago when the show was on the air that have still been like, that are still friends of mine from the fandom. So it's been so fun. This is our first adventure into podcasting, but it has been a good one, especially with all of the support from all of the community podcasters. And
I'm surprised to hear that because you're such a natural. I felt like
thanks.
You had like another one that you quit or something, like a professional one. I don't know.
No, fun fact about me, I hate public speaking. So podcasting is great because no one has to see me. Like I can just talk and then I can say, Chelsea, just splice that together. Like take out whatever doesn't make me sound good. But I'm just like, one of the things about me is Community was like the show that really got me interested in watching television critically. And so I credit like Emily Vanderwerf and like Alan Sepinwall, like for
Emily and Alan.
like for being the people that I was reading back then and like really getting me to think like, why do you love something? Why doesn't something work? And so reading like the AV Club and reading like Sepinwall stuff, I was like, oh, that's why. Like, and I have a degree in English and creative writing, but like being able to put like the love of television and like being able to look at it critically, because like that was the one thing that I was a little bit worried about because I was like, I know that I don't like some things about Community. So like, are people gonna like hate me because I talk about how it failed like a decent amount in some of the things it tried to do? And surprisingly, I have not gotten too much negative feedback about that. But I mean, I was writing thousands of words back in the day about Community. So like now doing a 2-hour episode, just regurgitating some of those same feelings. It's fun. It really is. I enjoy it. Like it's a pleasurable thing for me to get a chance to do.
What was it? Emily had a podcast. I forgot what it was called.
Oh.
It was before Emily. It was, I don't want to dead name them, but it was something with their old name, Vanderwerf. But I remember just really loving that. And then and my wife had gotten me Alan and Matt Zolt, whatever, the Sopranos book as well.
Oh,
I've been following Alan Sepinwall forever. I've been dream guest. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, they like both of them were so foundational to me, like understanding what makes good story, like in television specifically, because I would always, and I always wrote my reviews and then I would go after the fact and read Sepinwall's or read Emily's and just kind of go, do I agree with them? Do I not agree with them? And why? And I just loved that they were able to help me understand and put into words like why I don't like something. Because for so long in like fandoms, especially, and it still is true today, it's like people are always like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, I love this, or oh, I hate this so much, and like not always able to articulate why something doesn't work. They're just like, oh, it's awful. And I'm like, tell me why, like figure out why you don't like it. And Alan and Emily were like key in me being able to go, oh, so that's why that episode doesn't work for me. Oh, that's the story or the heart that's missing behind, whatever scene or plot line. So I credit them hugely to like being able to to understand and get myself thinking about that. And Community was the show that did that for me. So always has a special place.
Shout out to Chad. He's coming on, I think, next month. It's one of our buds' niche interests is always a Community.
That's true.
That's true.
Especially Community.
Especially Community. And I've been finding that, especially started with podcast.
Yeah.
I remember the first time going to a Comic-Con and being blown away how popular Power Rangers and wrestling still is. And like, not even just being rude, it was just off my radar for all those years.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's pretty. I can't believe how many of my adult friends love wrestling to this day. And I can't make fun of them because I have a podcast about podcasts. So come on.
There's always something for everyone. Like, that's what's great about like fandoms is that and sometimes the smaller ones are the more fun ones. Like, especially when Community was on the air, it always felt like we were like this little show that could up against this huge giant behemoth ratings juggernaut of Big Bang Theory, and we were like, we're surviving and we're doing this, and so I think part of
the air.
We're gonna do it, guys, and so there's always something for someone on the internet, and fandom is my thing too. So
well, I'd say the more what's that?
Did you watch it when it first aired?
I didn't. But see, I have excuses.
His children.
Well, I don't have children that are that old.
Okay.
However, I used to work in the performing arts, so I wasn't home a lot.
Yeah, that's fair.
At night.
When you had to be at home at 8:00 on a Thursday night to watch NBC.
Right.
We talk about that a lot.
Hulu.
Hulu
the next day.
We talked about that a lot on our podcast is like I will find my old tweets and just the tweets of, hey, does anyone have a download link so I can rewatch tonight's episode? Because I would rewatch it before I would write my review. Because I always wanted to be like, I watch it twice, write a review, write my notes up, and then I write the review usually the next day. And it's just so funny because like we had friends that were like my go-to hookups for like, here's the download link from this sketchy site. Because Hulu, and most people didn't have DVRs even back then, like in 2010, especially and so I was just like, what I wouldn't give to sometimes just be able to watch the show without the stress of having to figure out how to watch the show.
I had it on DVD.
I still have a couple seasons. I'm looking at them right now. Yeah. DVDs. And it's fun because you can go back and listen on the DVDs to the commentary. So that gives you sometimes more depth or humor or complete absurdity to certain episodes for sure. But yeah, DVDs, those were how we were getting by between seasons because there were no streaming services to watch it on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still blown away by that. I was like, oh yeah, I had to be home at 8:00.
Yeah.
Yes, I literally would tell. I lived at home at the time. I would tell my mom, 8:00, do not disturb me. I'm watching my show. And it would just be like, if someone interrupts you, you're like, I can't pause it. I can't rewatch it easily. Kids these days don't understand.
It's just funny because we're not talking 70 years ago. We're talking 10.
It's 10 years ago. It's just 10 years ago.
Like a 26-year-old wouldn't understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's wild. It's wild to me, the way that TV is transformed and the way that how people watch and consume it has transformed so drastically.
And that was Twitter was
just like a thing.
It was a gentler, kinder Twitter back then.
Yeah, it was so interesting because we were talking before we started broadcasting, like I remember when we would trend things every, 8:00 on the East Coast, every Thursday night, whatever the hashtag was going to be, because there was always a hashtag for the episode. So there would, hashtag Annie's move, I can't remember. There were so many different ones. And so we would like trend in like the US and all this stuff. But it was back when no one really understood, like Twitter and social media was not a metric for advertisers or for networks to be able to use to have any value. So like now, flash forward, and everyone uses social media as a metric for engagement and for, eyeballs and for advertising. And back then they didn't understand. It was like, well, Nielsen ratings. And we were always like, what's a Nielsen box? Like, who even owns one? And now, like, it's just so different. Like, obviously Nielsen ratings are still a thing, but it's wild to me how much even just the emphasis that we put on engagement for social media for shows and things like that has changed. And like that networks see value in that now, as opposed to when they were like, we don't know what a trending topic means. What's a hashtag? Why is that important? Tell me how many eyeballs were on our Nielsen boxes. Oh.
And then, one of the cool things I love, you've gotten to interview some pretty cool people from the show.
Yeah.
Megan Gans is one of the first like people I felt like a fan of, because she would, from just listening to so many comedy podcasts. I remember she did an episode of You Made It Weird with Pete Holmes, and like I just saw a community writer, and that was like the early days of like I started getting interested in like what writers were. But then you also did one with her and what's that?
Taran Killam?
Yeah, that little no-name guy from that show on NBC. The show from Taran Killam from the Cape.
Taran
right?
Killam, yeah, Taran Killam from the Cape.
Yep, that's it.
Not from a long running.
Yeah, his wife's
comedy.
not a Marvel mainstay.
Sometimes I forget that when we were talking to him, I forgot. Like I knew it because he was like, "Oh, I gotta go relieve my wife because she's watching the kids and she's got a Zoom interview." And like in that moment, I was like, "Your wife is Robin Scherbatsky and also in the Marvel Cinematic Universe." Like it didn't connect it, but then it was like, oh, that's so casually just mentioning that. I was like, okay, well, what is my life? Taran was such a whim. Like Taran was literally a Twitter whim. We've loved Taran since Stuck in the Suburbs and the Amanda Show. Like that was my first introduction to him. And I literally was just like, I know Taran was on Community, and we, it's Chelsea, my editor and friend, and I, we were like, we love Single Parents, which was his tragically canceled show on ABC. And I was like, at Taran Killam, oh, it'd be so much fun if you came on the show. He's like, yeah, let's do it. I was like, wait, what? oh, it's actually happening? Okay. So literally just through Twitter, that's how him and Megan Gans came on our show. Sometimes I tell people, just do it, just on a whim, just see what happens. The worst that happens is nothing happens. The best that happens is you get a really cool guest on your show because you tweeted at them. So,
oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
And our audio podcast, Let's Chat with Chris Revel, I think we're like almost episode 240. And like,
oh my gosh,
all of the guests, almost everyone it's been like just Twitter. Like,
yeah.
And I've even like done the appropriate, I remember this is my favorite thing, is a huge fan of iZombie at the time. And I went through all the proper channels to see if I can get Rahul Kohli to come on my podcast. No response from anyone. Hit him up on Twitter. He sent me a DM and he's like, yeah, are you free in an hour? I was like, okay, let's make it work.
Oh my gosh.
Just, I have a million of those, like, a million of those stories where I've gotten to talk to like my heroes and like,
yeah.
And then like you can go to the PR people, and thankfully I feel fortunate now. I've been at it long enough where I actually finally get a no sometimes. Yeah. But I mean, it's look who gave us a comment. That's Robert's wonderful wife
Aww.
And my business partner. And I used to just call her my partner because like we're business partners, but then someone thought we were like married.
Let me specify.
I was like, listen, that would be a huge upgrade for me, but that's very insulting to Brie.
Twitter can be amazing. That's how
it actually, I think it is, to be honest. Before the MAGA bots came in, but even then, I feel like I've carved out my own little niche world.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird place. It can be a wonderful place. I mean, a lot of my connections and friends are still from people that I met on Twitter, so it's absolutely. Like, it has a special place in my heart. Is it a dumpster fire occasionally? Yeah, of course it is. Do I try and put myself in a bubble? Yeah, exactly. You're just kind of like, okay, I gotta stop doom scrolling, which was basically all of last year. So, but yeah, no, I always tell people just on a whim, like the worst that happens is you get a response or you get a no, and the best that happens. Oh my gosh.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. I was listening to you.
I saw the comment.
Oh my God. Brie, I can't explain this to you if you're watching this live, but as good as season 1 and that episode is one of my favorites, it's just going to get better. Just wait to Chicken Fingers, and then you're just like...
So good.
I ate paintball.
Well, see, here's the fun thing. I
love them all.
I might have a controversial opinion.
You don't like
I am not a huge fan of Modern Warfare. Like I love it for what it was, but that was not an episode that like cracks my top 10 by any means.
Can you give me your top 10?
If I could pull it up. Okay, so
Rob, what about you? What are your top?
Dang it! Hold on, I can pull up.
I don't know if I can name. Oh, hold on.
Ooh.
See, I was like, just because we were
Halloween,
we are rewatching. So
obviously, Christmas, Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas will always make that list for me.
Yeah.
Where is it?
I love the debate episode, which is one we're coming up on.
Good.
Yes.
Debate 109 does crack my top.
Favorite. I love the Dungeons and Dragons episode.
See, again, I appreciate it, but we talked about this when we actually covered our Dungeons and Dragons episode. I don't have an emotional attachment to Dungeons and Dragons, so I don't feel like I appreciate that. And also, Pierce is so unbearably cruel in that episode that it's really hard for me to watch it. And I'm like, I can appreciate this for sure, especially after, I don't remember if it was like Joel, I think it might have been Joel McHale talking about how Danny does most of the dialogue. Like he's narrating most of the episode. So he has the most lines for sure. And he's driving the episode. And you go back and you think about it and you're like, yeah, Danny really is the one who's like saying the most and doing the most. And Danny is amazing, obviously. But that one is not one of my favorites either. I did find my list.
What's your top two?
My top two? Remedial Chaos Theory is my first.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But then Conspiracy Theories and Interior Design is is right there because it is one of my favorite. Like one of my favorite.
Professorson?
Yeah. It's such a good episode.
Actually, I think My Dinner Without Ed is probably my favorite outside of Christmas.
And then my third is actually the episode that hooked me. So I was a little worried when I started watching the show. My friend told me to watch it. She told me, I started watching it because I knew what was going to happen in season. Titles are really great.
I know. And
Megan talked about that. Megan talked about how they came up with the titles for all of the episodes. On
everyone, listen, go back and if you're not ever listening to the Community Rewatch podcast, please do. Watch along and just interact with all of you nice people online too. Like, and I've gotten to meet so many wonderful people in your community. I love the fact that you can kind of pull them into our community.
Yeah.
When we talked to Alex, it was so funny because it was like, we love community, but then it turned into like, here's some trauma from my why I left my church.
Yeah. That happens. That does happen. We have a lot of random conversations. Like in our group, we have a podcaster group chat DM thread on Twitter, which occasionally, it's usually pretty chill, but occasionally like we'll get into a thing and I will come back to, if I'm at work or whatever was in a meeting, I'll be like, I missed like 59 messages today and I don't know what just happened.
Yeah,
but
I work in behavioral health and like, I think community does attract people who are on the outskirts. Like it's for the misfits and the oddballs, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but we're all just a little bit of little Annie Adderall.
Oh, God, love her. She's my favorite. My third favorite episode is a deep cut because it's Football, Feminism, and You, which is the episode that hooked me. I was worried because I wasn't really hooked on the show up until that point.
What happens in that episode?
That is the episode where Dean and Pierce come up with the Greendale mascot. Troy gets recruited to play football. And Britta learns the value of bathroom conversations with women, written by the incomparable Hillary Winston. It is like, I didn't laugh out loud in the show, and I was so worried. I was like, is this going to be one of those shows that people tell me is really good, and then I'm the only person who doesn't get the hype because I watched the first few episodes. Yeah, the human being is the creepiest mascot ever. It will only get creepier for you. We did warn some of our friends who were only in season 1. You think it's creepy now? It gets creepier somehow as the series goes on.
You're going to get an onslaught of text message to me about, because my friend at work is also watching it, and he just got to the debate episode yesterday. So like, I have 2 people to talk to about watching it for the first time. So
good. But yeah, no, the conversation... Hi, Kitty. the conversation between Troy and Jeff on the football field was the first thing that made me laugh out loud in the show. And I was like, okay, I can see now where the show is going to go. But yeah, out of all of them, like, Modern Warfare was not my favorite. I will say A Fistful of Paintballs does crack my top like 10 because that one is super good. And I'm a huge Annie fan. So that episode is like peak finally using Alison Brie to the fullest of her potential. And especially Annie as a character, because the show often did the women dirty, which is the thing we talk about.
Shirley especially.
Yeah.
Robert, what are your top episodes?
Yeah.
Debate 109.
So good.
I was also going to say the Fistful of Paintballs. I love that episode.
Stylistically, it's perfect too. It's just so good.
Yeah. Let's see here. Chaos, of course.
Yes.
And what's the one where they're stuck in they're stuck in Pierce's house?
Oh, paranormal parentage. Megan Gans.
Yes,
she's one of my favorite writers.
She is a dream. She really is. And we're not paid by Apple to keep promoting Mythic Quest, but please watch Mythic Quest if you have Apple TV Plus, because Megan Gans is a co-showrunner for that show. It's so good.
I might get Apple TV just for that. Then.
Do it. And Ted Lasso. Do it for that and Ted Lasso too.
Ted Lasso's great.
I've heard it was good. I watched an episode and then I ran out of my Apple TV. That's here or there.
Yeah.
You guys, actually, this is for both of you as well. Do you have any like for me? I grew up as a Simpsons fanatic to the point like it affects my daily life. Like I can't park in a parking lot with my brother or a friend and be like, remember we park in the Itchy lot. Like those little nuances. Do you have any for Community? Like, except my wife and I, like, one of our bits around the house would be like, we're getting ready for the fight.
Fun.
Like, we have a few from Community. Do you have any of those little, like, has it gotten that ingrained in your subconscious where, like, you have little bits throughout the day?
Oh, my gosh. I'm sure that there are. Basically anything Troy says.
Yeah,
like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. My whole I don't know what to do. My whole brain is crying is a thing that like I say in my head a lot. Or why are you making us feel these things?
Or I do a lot of I only wanted a signed picture of the bumper and I never wanted to meet him.
Once again, Megan Gans.
Yeah, I'm gonna meet her afterwards. So like, Jen said you're nice. Please talk to us.
She's so nice.
Actually, that might work. So I think
she's the best. She's the cutest puppy now too. It's so great. I'm trying to think. I mean, there are so many like little things. I don't know why, but sometimes this is a good example in Romantic Expressionism. Annie has this line to Britta, and I used to have like these like boots that I would wear for wintertime, and every time I put them on, I would think to myself, you're not my mother, Britta. She would never wear boots that go up that high. Why? Why does that get stuck in my head? I don't know. Or, of course, you would think that, Britta. It's obvious by your name that your parents smoked pot. Like, why are those things that get stuck in my head that I think of? I don't know. But every time I put on those boots, I was like, I hear Alison Brie's delivery of that line in my head.
I can't eat a bagel without thinking of bagel.
Bagel. Yeah.
Bagel.
Or I lived in New York. Like any iteration of
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean
Robert, Eddie?
that yeah.
You just named them all.
This is our dynamic is I asked Robert a question and I answered for him.
And he's like all of the above.
Yeah.
You're lucky that you work with my wife or else I would
Secret option C. Oh goodness. There's so many quotable things that are just so small too that you're like, or like an Annie gasp or an awe. I mean, the thing that I do most of my life is the Annie awe or like the Annie and she's like, oh, like that's just my natural state of being. It just happens to be the thing she does all the time.
I know. I work in the recovery community and I just love how honestly they've been portrayed into a recovery journey and like it's still funny, but they don't take light of the fact that she was an addict. Like they take it very serious. Like it's it's especially if you're working like with substance abuse. If there's any reference to it anywhere in pop culture, it's going to come up in like for someone who has it, it's going to come up in Community. Like I don't know, she's Annie, but it's not Annie it's Annie. It's not like the addict who's Annie. It's Annie who happened to have an addiction, and like they also show like high functioning addiction.
Yeah,
but, like, they just do it in such a great way. But you're right. It just her O's are just like.
Yeah, she has such an interesting journey. I have qualms with some of the way that they just chose to not always focus. I mean, obviously it's a comedy, but there were times where it was like they brought it back. In particular, there are certain times, especially later on in the seasons, as people who listen to our pod know, I'm not a huge fan of the later seasons, but like they bring it back in for like a really dark punchline of like she dosed them with amphetamines, like, and that's just never mentioned. Or like she now pushes pills, and it's like, do you? I mean, I know that this character was a drug addict, like, and she has an addictive personality. That's the thing about Annie, is that she goes from 0 to 60. So I do think it's impressive that like that is part of her personality in everything she does. Like has an addictive tendencies, and you can see that in the way that she pursues school and her friendships and relationships and things like that. But I feel like, yeah, I agree to an extent. I feel like sometimes the show was just like, we need a punchline. Remember how Annie used to do drugs? Wouldn't it be funny if she dosed the study group with drugs? And you're like, I don't think funny's the word you're looking for here. Like, I don't know what I feel about that, but it's not funny. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's just very interesting. The later seasons, again, I think I have so many fond memories of the earlier seasons. The later seasons get a little bitter and jaded and cynical in a way that I don't appreciate. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, because I know we're doing a later season episode that you're very kind enough to invite me on, and
yes,
I'm going to hold you to it apparently.
Yes, but, there are good ones in there. That I think that's one of the ones that I like really love. Yeah. But
some of I actually don't really care for 6. Like honestly, my Community is like 1 to 3, some of 4 and 5.
It's so funny because so many people have started to say that. Like when I've seen people talk about Community, what I hear a lot is like the first 3 seasons are gold, 4 is man. And I'm a season 4 defender. Like I
love season 4. I like season 4.
I think that there are certain things that, because of the qualms that I have with Dan Harmon as a person and the way that he ran the show, I think that there are some things in season 4 that wouldn't have happened had he been there, because they were able to show some more emotion and relationships and romantic love in a way that Dan Harmon did not want to talk about or portray. But yeah, it does have some huge misses, but also if you look at all of the seasons, all of them have huge misses for me. Like there's a season 1 episodes where I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about the fact that my favorite episode of Community and my least favorite episode of Community are written by the same person. What do I do with that? I don't know.
We have a question from Bree. I actually have not. I never finished season 6.
Just watch the finale. That's what I tell people. Unless you're a completionist and you have to watch everything to say that you're done, just watch the series finale because it is beautiful and brilliant. It is absolutely, it is perfect, but everything before that in season 6, I would say you could watch Modern Espionage. Like that's a fun one because it's got Kumail Nanjiani coming back, and it's the last paintball, and it's kind of a fun paintball. It's like the elevators, the Captain America scene, like kind of thing. So I would say watch that and watch this series. You could literally not watch any of season 6 and watch the series finale, and you would not miss like anything. Also, hi Kitty. Hi Kitty Tail. Is that confirmation of my statement? The cat's tail at the camera. What do we think? Do we think the cat's agreeing with me?
Yeah, I think
so.
Okay.
It's funny, that episode that you just referred to. My friend John Myers, who's a past guest on our other podcast, he did production for season 6, and he has that paintball. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but he has that paintball gun from season 6. He took it home, but he's he does production for Robot Chicken and a lot of cool stuff. But he worked on season 6 of Community.
Love that. Yeah, I've watched I watched it all. I watched from season 2 through season 6 live when season 6 was on Yahoo Screen. R.I.P. I guess. But Chelsea stopped watching in season 5, so it's gonna be real fun after she stopped watching at G.I. Jeff. Like, and I'm like, fair.
That's fair.
That's fair. So it'll be real fun when we get to episodes she has literally never seen.
I think what a really cool thing you kind of unintentionally kind of hinted on was about the creator Dan Harmon, who, like, you know, I'm a fan to some extent, but he has handled him. He has come forward and apologized, and I'm on a personal note. I'm very much one. I believe in a path to redemption for all, except certain people. But Dan Harmon's one of them. But you know, people can get into the art, like, how do you separate art from an artist? And you kind of get into those conversations, and it's hard because he was a monster. Like, he was but he made great art, and I think it was kind of what also brought me into the show is, like, I loved following all the drama with him and Chevy at the time. So I didn't know at the time none of the stuff that he was saying to, like, Megan and all that.
Yeah,
that stuff I learned years later. So,
yeah, I don't think any of us knew that at the time. We definitely knew the stuff with Chevy. If you were following closely enough, there were people who were, like, casual fans who didn't necessarily know, but, like, we knew that there was behind the scenes stuff with Chevy and Donald, and like just everything kind of with his interactions in general with. Yeah,
and I think he has. I don't know if he's open, but he does. I think he has, like, bipolar. I've watched Harmontown, which is maybe one of my favorite directors, Neil Berkeley, and it really portrayed kind of a tortured artist, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we talked about this with Caitlin Durante from the Bechtel cast.
I love Caitlin. That's right. We connected over that.
Yeah, because we talked about that. Yeah,
I've worked with her a few times. I love Caitlin and Jamie.
We did a huge. It's our longest episode to date, but it's so good. It's like a 3 hour almost long episode. We talk about the women of Community, and one of the things that we talk about is the fact that, like, the stuff that came out with Dan Harmon, and it's really hard, I think, for me to watch people idolize someone when you know that he wasn't fired because the network was like, oh, we just don't like him. He was fired because he did some crappy stuff, and, like, also was horrible with
everyone
managing and running a show and everything, and the budget, and, you know, it's his personality and all of this stuff, and obviously we didn't know the things that were happening behind the scenes that, you know, Megan and Dan talked about, and you know, Megan has talked about how she's forgiven him and all of that, and so it's hard for me sometimes when people are so blindly supportive of someone who has done damage and who clearly, like, he's not perfect. And I think that that's the hardest thing to watch, is, like, sometimes when I see diehard people who are, like, super huge fans of Community, they're like, Dan Harmon can do no wrong. He's a genius. He's amazing. He's a god. And it's like, he's a flawed human being who made some great stuff. But also, one of the things that I think is really important when I watched seasons 5 and 6 was watching some of that get transferred onto seasons 5 and 6. Some of Dan Harmon's functional alcoholism, the bitterness and the anger that he had with getting fired and then coming back. He made Community essentially his, I don't want to say, like, revenge show, but it kind of felt like that. It kind of felt like, here's my bitter start. If I have to do the 6 seasons because, like, that's what I promised way back when, is 6 seasons in a movie, and now everyone's expecting it. Well, I'm going to make Jeff a functional alcoholic who tries to literally kill Abed multiple times in season 6. That is a thing that most people forget about. He tries to strangle him. He imagines strangling him. There's a lot of stuff in season 6 where I don't like that, because of the fact that, like, Dan Harmon is then transferring himself onto this show and these characters whom I've come to know and love. And when you can sense that in a creator, and when you can sense that this is a person who really just is feeling these things and wants his show to be a reflection of that, it's not the same Community from seasons 1 through 3, or even 4. 5 and 6 and 6 mostly, but 5 does start to get us there in terms of things. But I just, you know, Dan Harmon is a person who, he was the one who replied to my tweet and read my review of Geography of Global Conflict. And because of that, I started a freelance site that then I got to go to Comic-Con and, like, go as press and be.
What's your site? Give us a plug.
It's just about right, but right is WRITE. So it's www.its justaboutright.com. So you know, and I think that, like, part of me will always be attached to Community for that reason. Like, oh, cool. Like, he did that. But, like, do I we talked about this in the episode. Do I now know more information and have a different opinion? Yes, of who he is as a person. Absolutely. Like, I've learned more information. I've normalized changing my opinion. I've realized that he could have created a character in shows that I love, but do I hold him up as this like idol? Absolutely not. Like, that's just how it is, you know? And so it's a really hard, complex, nuanced thing that you can't have like a Twitter conversation about sometimes with people, you know? You're just kind of like, it's a lot to process, and different people can feel differently, but it's just, you know, I think it's harder for me too as a woman to watch when I see men talking about how Dan Harmon is a genius and can do no wrong. It's just, yeah, it's uncomfortable for me to sit in that.
I think about this stuff a lot too, like cancel culture or whatever, but like the way I always think of things is like, it kind of like depends on what your emotional connection to the thing in play is. Like, so like when the stuff came out about R. Kelly and like, oh, we're canceling R. Kelly, didn't mean anything to me. I didn't care about R. Kelly. Mm-hmm. But like when it was, people went after Aziz Ansari, I have a strong connection to Masters of None. I really like his comedy. Obviously what they did are completely different on the spectrums of, you know, like clearly enslaving people.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. I think it's like, I know, well, my dad refuses to eat Chick-fil-A because of who they support, like the anti-LGBT community, but he's also never had Chick-fil-A in his entire life. So it wasn't a big deal.
So like, yeah.
But before I knew that, I really like Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Like I have a connection to it. So it's like, it's just, I don't know. I guess you draw the line. I think the thing is just not screaming at others. Like, and I think there's a difference with like, I love Community. I don't know if I'm a Dan Harmon fan. I would interview him for sure. I'm not going to try to, but if I got the opportunity, I would. But I'm with you. Like it's alcohol, man. It's it's mother trucker.
Yeah,
it is. It's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, there's just certain things that it's a very nuanced conversation and a spectrum of how you feel about certain things. And yeah, it's like, can I watch the show and appreciate the show knowing that the person who made it is kind of a garbage person? Yeah, like absolutely. But like,
the truth is we all cancel stuff and every single person watches the thing they claim online they don't watch. But like I still listen to Michael Jackson. I'm going to throw it out there. Yeah. Like we're all going to say we don't. Everyone does it. Let's all stop lying to each other.
Yeah, but like, do I have a different opinion of it than I did 10 years ago? For sure. 10 years ago, I thought Dan Harmon was the best thing since sliced bread. And I was like, he's the best. You know, exactly. I love carbs. Okay. I love carbs. And I thought Dan Harmon, like, but as I've learned and as I've grown as a person, did I change my opinion? Yes. But that is a thing. Oh,
I like to teach her to make
no.
They don't like it.
No. Oh.
Yeah, I've been muting because she's been screaming.
Where's my man Landon?
Yeah, she's gonna bed. But yeah, no, it's 100%. It's a hard thing, and I've been in the arts for a very, very long time, and it's hard to separate the art from the person. But yeah, it's you do the best you can.
Yeah, I'm not going to give my 4-year-old, when she gets older, I'm not going to give her any Bill Cosby records, but I still think he's funny. But I'm not going to engage with his art ever again or pass it on to another generation. Yeah. But I'm not going to show her the Cosby. If she finds it, that's fine. I'm not going to be the one that does it.
Yeah.
And the thing too with abuse, like especially with high function alcoholism or like abusive people, the thing about abuse people don't always understand is that like it is a two-way street though. Usually with people who are abusive, there's usually great love, and that's kind of I can see that from Dan Harmon. He seems as the type like if he's shining his spot on you, I'm sure that must feel incredible. But then you can hear those stories of like the flip side of it, like oh God, what a horrible place to work. But thank God they did great art. Thank God the art's good.
Yeah, I'm glad that people have found functional and healthy workplaces after Community, and that the writers who have been on the show are thriving. I think, I think reading that, Megan Gann's statement of, her talking about like the first memory now that she has associated with the first episode of TV she wrote, and that kind of, like you can forgive, but like that's always going to be a reality of certain things. And yeah, obviously it was an amazing experience for all of the writers, and there's things that they've created. It's just one of those things that kind of sucks that like when you know that they had to be created under such a horrible work environment, like I give so much credit to people like Megan, to all the women who wrote on the show, of course, like to the men too, like, but like to be able to produce and to still create in spite of the things that were happening, they shouldn't have been happening. But the ability that they had to persevere in that is really admirable, and it really it makes it suck even more because of how talented they are. That was a thing that they had to endure, and of course, again, we didn't know a lot of the stuff behind the scenes, until recently. So now it gives you kind of a lens to look back on certain things, where at the time it was like, oh, this is just a show that's struggling, and now we're like, oh, that was what was going on. Okay, now I can see the show a little bit clearer. I can see the person who created the show a little bit more clearly, and I think that is, we always encourage people, look at the thing that you love critically, hold it under a microscope, everything that you love. Don't blind, don't like just say, oh, I'm going to follow it. It has no flaws. It is perfect. It's case closed, end of story. It can do no wrong. Like, make sure that you constantly look at the things that you love and are open to learning, and normalize changing your opinion when you learn new information. So yeah, I normalized changing my opinion. When I learned information about what happened, my opinion changed. And, everyone is up to their individual, feelings and thoughts about certain things. But I've had experiences in my life where would I interview Dan if I had the chance? Probably not. I just, it's not on the top of my priority list. Like, but do I still appreciate Community? And is it still one of my favorite shows? Yes.
Yeah.
Both things can be true. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Both things can be true.
Community's more than Dan Harmon.
Yeah, and that's the thing that also kind of bugged me about people who criticized season 4. Community was more than Dan Harmon. It was, sure, season 4 has its flaws, for sure. You're allowed to.
Yeah, but so does season 1, 2, and 3.
And I think that, even the writers would say like, oh, it was really hard without Dan kind of harmonize, because that was the term they use, harmonizing like the scripts and things like that. And I get it. But also like Community is more than Dan Harmon. And I love and appreciate so much about season 4 because I get a chance to see some different people shine a lot brighter that then couldn't. Andy, Megan, some of the other writers, Jim Rash got to write an episode. Like the cast.
About the Dean yet.
I know, but the
What's
cast
the Dean gonna do?
The cast.
Yeah, that's another thing. We do ding-a-ling-a-ling. What's the Dean got to do with it? I think I quote the Dean at least once a day in my daily life.
That's fair. Make all the Dean puns that you can. But yeah, like
I don't care about repercussions, yo.
But yeah, like they are so much of a Community, like the cast, everything. Like, and I love season 4 because I just love the fact that we get to see some different people shine. And Community was more than Dan Harmon to me. And to some people, Community is just Dan Harmon. And you know what?
Understand that.
Watch it how you want to watch it, I suppose. But there's a lot more life and nuance when it's not just, just Dan Harmon's voice.
Oh, there's so many side characters. I mean, like Leonard and Pop.
Magnitude. AKA Lee Jordan from Harry Potter. AKA Sid on Gallivant. We don't talk.
And then, like, I mean,
people don't talk about
Vicky
Gallivant.
and Fat Neil and God, there's just so many. Like, it's got that real
Kendra.
It's got that Simpsons quality to it. It's funny. I remember one time watching an interview with Dan Harmon talking about how he wanted to do like a crossover with Parks and Rec and how it seemed like they were the good version of him. And now knowing everything about Mike Schur versus Dan Harmon, I'm like, I see why Mike Schur stayed really far away from him.
Can I just say what I would give to live in the Mike Schur universe? I would give a lot to live in a Schur universe because his shows are so good.
My brother used to be on this, I think it was called Grantland. It doesn't exist anymore. It was, but he was on like a Red Sox message board years and years ago. And he'd be like, yeah, I'm talking to this dude. He plays Cousin Mose on The Office. I'm like, that's cool. And for like 5 or 10 years, they were like internet friends. And and then I'm like, by the this is pre-Office, and now I'm like, oh my god, Aaron, I wish I had a podcast and you could be like, can you do my podcast, Mike? Sure, because he seems like a nice enough guy that he would if he had the time.
Mike Schur and JJ Philbin are a power couple. And in this essay, I will, because JJ Philbin was on New Girl. She was co-creator of Single Parents. Mike Schur, obviously. I was just like, I love you both so much. Obviously, JJ Philbin was also the daughter of Regis Philbin. But yes, but yeah, no, both of them, I'm like, I would pay cash money for you to just sit down and talk to you about writing and comedy.
I bet we can get him on. Well, no, we get to start a Parks and Rec rewatch podcast.
You know what? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I'll do it.
I have this problem where I just there's not, like I'm sure we all do, there's just never enough hours in the day. Because if it was up to me, I would just interview everyone. Like me and Robert are talking about trying to get some of the people from Scrubs, which is a lot of Scrubs community crossover too in terms of writers and stuff.
Yeah, Neil Goldman, Garrett Donovan.
We're trying to get Joelle from the Real Doctors, Fake Friends.
Oh, nice.
No, Real Friends, Fake Doctors.
Yes,
Joelle
Monique.
Yes.
I know people.
I didn't realize I knew of her prior to that podcast from just like Twitter. I didn't realize it was the same person I followed.
Nice.
From I don't know how I knew who she was, but oh my goodness.
Yeah, and now Bill Lawrence is show running the best comedy on television.
I know. And apparently all the Scrubs people are friends. And same with The Office. 30 Rock, oddly enough, the show that I loved back in the day, if you did a poll of my favorite, I would have been like, in 20 years, we're going to be studying 30 Rock in colleges. And it's not.
Now we're going to be studying it for a different reason. Necessarily.
Yeah, I don't go back to it as much as I do to Parks or The Office or Community.
I feel like I never watched 30 Rock. Out of all of those, I never watched. That was the only one I never watched out of that lineup. I know that it was more of like a biting, sarcastic, and weird. Insider. It had that weird, yeah. It had that thing that now has become just trademark of Tina Fey. It's kind of like the oddball kind of comedy stuff. Never. I don't know that I've actually even seen a full episode of it.
It's early seasons, very good. I really liked it, but it's funny to me. If I rate them all, and how they all mean to me and stuff, I just thought 30 Rock. My wife used line from Parks and Rec in her wedding vows for us.
Is it "I love you and I like you"?
Yeah, obviously.
My cousin did too.
What if I was like, no, it's Bye Bye Little Sebastian?
Yeah,
I just took out the guitar.
I would have been like, yeah. Then you gave candles to all of your wedding guests and had them wave and sing 5,000 Candles in the Wind. All right.
I love The Office, but Community is honestly my favorite of all of them.
It's definitely the one that I've rewatched the most. I think The Office takes a bigger hit in terms of quality, especially after Michael Lee. I'm sorry. I know
even
that everyone
before Michael Lee's
about
personally.
Yeah, I just
that christening episode.
Yeah, it was weird. There's, it's just one of those things where it was such a long run. It was 23 to 25, if not almost 30 sometimes episode seasons. And it ran for 9 years. Parks is probably out of all of them, minus season 1 of Parks, which I know everyone's you just have to power through the writer's strike episodes.
Or 6 episodes.
It's 6 episodes. Literally my friend told me, she's like, I'm not a completionist. I just skip them. I've never watched the first 6.
Actually, they're fine.
They're okay. They're just it's tonally, it didn't know what it wanted to be. And the writers and creators
was pregnant, so they were doing it in a vacuum. And at that point too, it was still there was still that it was at one point was going to be an Office spinoff and Karen Filippetti, and then obviously they changed all that. But she was more Michael Scott.
Which is what they were talking about. They were trying to figure out is she going to be Michael Scott? And then by season 2, you're like, okay, no. So this isn't this person's, quirks and habits are actually embraced by the people that she works with, not shunned. And, I don't know. I think Parks has so many good things. One of the things that I love Community, but one of the things I talk about a lot is that they didn't want to talk about or do romance. And I'm like, that's, your prerogative, but at the same time, to avoid it for 6 years entirely, Yeah,
You
and the show,
this, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
I had
Did
a
you fit it? Because I looked at it like today. I was lurking.
no, but I definitely have talked
Yeah.
about this ad nauseum
You were like
people.
complaining, like it means you're a bad writer, and I was like,
It does,
yeah, I like
yes.
this
Oh yeah,
channel.
sorry. Yes, my just about right pinned tweet is that it's like if you don't know how to do this, like it's not like you're being subversive. You're just bad at writing romance. And the one thing I will say about Parks and The Office is they actually made it so that romance was funny, and like that is a thing that I constantly talk about, and I've talked about a lot. Is that shows dismiss romance, like comedies especially, because they think, oh, once these people are together, it's not funny, or relationships can't be funny. And it's like Ben and Leslie are hilarious together, and they stay together the whole show. And they're just April and Andy are so funny, and they're in love, and like
They have a baby together.
they're so different. That's what makes it funny. One of the funniest Ben and Leslie things is when Leslie's literally standing at a fountain yelling, "I am super chill" all the time to Ben, who is like, what? And like the Model UN episode that they have where they're like competing, it's funny, and romance is funny. And I think I don't know, that's the one sticking, well, not the one, there's a lot of things in Community that don't age well.
Now knowing about Dan Harmon, it makes sense. Like, of course you can't write love, you can't feel it.
Yeah, well, yeah,
that was kind of mean but true.
It's just kind of like, if you're not going to prioritize it, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And you can't be subversive and be like, haha, we're so smart because we're not going to write about romance. I'm like, you are literally missing something fundamental. Love is fundamental to humanity. So you're saying, we don't want to talk about this because it's not important, or we don't have value or whatever. But which is what I love about The Office and Parks, is that they actually were like, this is funny, like, and The Good Place. And again, to live in the Mike Schur, JJ Philbin universe, new girl, single parents, just want to live. I want them to write my world and me just live in it.
I know.
I'd be good.
Mike Schur likes to pack a punch with The Good Place. That's son of a.
I need to rewatch it. I haven't done a full rewatch.
I watched the finale again.
Oh, I sobbed.
Yeah,
I haven't finished.
Did you want to cry?
Yeah, I did.
Then or Schitt's Creek's finale is the perfect thing to do.
Yeah, I like had a really intense therapy session, and I was like, you know what? I've already got this far. We just got to let the rest out.
Just going. Lean in.
Yeah.
Lean so hard into that.
The Good Place finale and Endgame are the two, like, I'll put this on and just be like, I just got to get some stuff out.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, which I watched the other night. But, oh my God. I know. God, I love Community. And I love the community that Community has created, and like everyone who's gone on from it. And like, I mean, God, the first YouTube video I ever watched was Donald Glover, was Dare Comedy. Yeah. And so it's just it's cool to see, like,
what's he doing now?
What's that?
What's Donald Glover doing now? Is he doing anything?
I think he's complaining about PC culture. Actually,
okay, I think that it's not that. I think he was just complaining about.
Yeah, no, I'm just teasing.
Okay, yeah. I was like, because people were
got so misquoted. I felt so bad. I was like, dude, that's not what he said.
No, I know, and people were literally like,
no one read the article.
Like,
the guy
no one reads. No one reads. Well,
yeah, nobody
it's
reads.
2021. No one reads.
No,
that's
he's
slogan.
One of the biggest regrets in my life is that when Community was in one of the early seasons, he did an early. He was doing stand up in a Childish Gambino tour. It was like I Am Donald. And it came to Providence, and I don't know why, but I couldn't go. But I had friends who had been. I didn't live here yet, and I like have friends who like hung out, and it was just like 7 people hanging out with like a nobody that was.
I'm still so mad to this day that he was here. He was in Orlando years and years and years ago for a show, for a show, and a signing, and it was raining that night, and that's why I didn't want to drive, and I'm like. I could have literally met him.
I know. Danny Pudi's always been my dream of all of them.
Oh.
Like, I love everyone on that show. I really want to. Well, not Chevy. He's a POC.
Yeah.
He's probably the only people. No, who am I kidding? I would totally take an interview with Chevy Chase. I'm not above anything. I'm no. I'll take sponsorships from Phil Morris at this point. Yeah, listen.
I'm like, you know what? No.
I'm not in the position to turn things down right now.
I'm good. No, but Danny from every person who's ever talked to and about. I really would love to talk to Danny, especially because I'm such a huge Mythic Quest fan now.
I thought you were going to say DuckTales, because I am a DuckTales fanatic.
Larry, I'm on DuckTales.
That's the best. Robert, have you watched DuckTales at all?
I haven't. But
No,
the voice cast is incredible.
They describe it as Indiana Jones meets Arrested Development, and that's what it is.
Gosh, David Tennant is the
they do a Doctor Who reunion in it. They have him and Catherine Tate do an episode together.
I love Catherine Tate.
Allison Janney is dedicated to one episode every season.
Lin-Manuel
Miranda is Gizmo Duck.
I absolutely love her.
Okay, now I'm like, now I really need to watch.
It made me cry.
Ben Schwartz also I love.
Ben Schwartz, Rachel Sands. I'm a fanatic. I cannot tell anyone enough, because it's like it should not be as good as it is. Like, it's unreal. It's like Community. Like the feeling I would get from Community of like, you don't even laugh sometimes. You just, am I actually watching this? Is what I get from DuckTales, because they do a lot of crossover with the Disney Afternoon stuff. Like, they have Darkwing Duck is a major character through the whole series.
That was my childhood.
Yeah, I'll stop. I can't be We're all here for everyone. This is all just a reason you should all watch DuckTales. But like everyone on that show, the writers, actors,
Allison
producers.
Brie is who I would love to.
James Franco's sister-in-law. I mean, Dave Franco's wife.
Sometimes I forget that,
I listened to her on Armchair Expert.
Yeah.
Awesome human
It's
being.
real cute. Their like courtship story was pretty dang adorable.
Pretty druggy. I like it.
It's pretty cute. But I mean, Allison Brie is she's Allison Brie.
Joel McHale, a legitimate.
I met Joel.
You did?
Oh yeah, this is why I tell people Twitter can do anything. I met Joel because of Twitter in person one time. Long story short. So when I was watching Community, Joel had done a stand-up before I think Community did in Orlando, but he hadn't been since. And when the height of Community was happening, I was kept randomly adding Joel McHale in my tweets about things, and he would respond. He would just respond to my random tweets that I added him in. And I was like, Joel, you need to come and do a show in Orlando. It's been years. When are you coming back to the state? And so finally, at one point, I saw that he was coming back. It was when season 6 was airing. And so I got tickets for me and my best friend. And then I got a DM from someone who I didn't recognize. And he reached out to me and he's like, hey, so Joel would like to give you tickets and backstage passes to the show. Is that okay? And I was like, I already bought my tickets, but I will 100% take the backstage passes. Yes, thank you. So met him with my best friend, and he's the nicest human being. And I mean, he's so good at being a jerk, but he is legitimately such a perfectly nice human being and a very tall
class act.
He really is.
That's awesome.
He talked with me and my best friend, and his opening act was with him. And he remembered things that I had said. He was like, oh yeah, this is Jen. I'm pretty sure he introduced me as oh yeah, I know her from the internet, but she's not creepy. And I was like, thank you. That's my badge of honor from here on out, is that I'm not creepy. My actual badge of honor is that I made him laugh. I'm like, done. I win.
Who was the opener?
I don't remember who his opener was, but I remember him being in, I remember just us chatting in his dressing room and just being how are you both? Da-da-da. And we just made small talk. We talked about the episode of Community that had aired. He talked about my website. He's like, oh yeah, didn't Dan follow you? And that's how you got started, or commented. And I was like, yeah, it's.
Did you lose your mind? Because he's the famous one.
Yeah, I know. But he's he was so chill, and also he was so I felt so bad because I know that he was taking time out of his day to talk to me, and I know that he was so tired because he was doing so much at that time, and he was doing stand-up shows, and just that was what I appreciate the most is he took time to genuinely talk to me and my best friend and carry on conversations. He was the one who my best friend was you totally forgot to ask for a picture, and he was like, oh, do you want a picture? And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I should do that and commemorate that. But he was so nice and just so kind, and yeah, like that's one of the things where I'm like, that's one of those great experiences where you're like, oh, so that's the thing with it. I'm like, he always gets cats as like the jerk or the smarmy douchebag, and he's so good at playing it, but like in real life, he could not be a nicer person. So
He's a good dad.
Yeah, good dad, a good husband. Like it's just like you're just a nice, very tall dude. Like, and you're funny.
It's like the Himian. Yeah, it's like the Himian thing. Like that's why Barney was funny because that's not Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah, so it's like it was. So that was like that's like a highlight I think of fandom for me is like
wow,
just being able to meet.
Super gel. I'm actually real jealous. I don't even know how you top that. Robert, who do you got? What do you got? Who's DM'd you for tickets?
Nobody.
I saw him do stand up. That's all I had, and I thought he was really surprisingly funny, like an actually good stand up comedian too.
Yeah. He told stories. He was just really funny and like just he's a lot of. Oh, I say a lot. Quite a few of my other friends have met him, and he again I've never heard anyone say a bad thing about an encounter with Joel. Like they just are always like he's super nice. And
are you gonna get him on your pod?
I mean, he's super busy, but if he wants to, he's always welcome. Yeah, I would love to get Danny because we're doing Mythic Quest, so fingers crossed.
I'm sure you could. You at least know someone who knows him.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see.
A well-timed pitch, a good pitch, and well-timed, and him again.
Good pitch.
You know.
He's so fun though on Mythic Quest. If you haven't watched it yet, he plays a Jeff Winger-esque character on Mythic Quest, and it's very fun to watch. He's very smarmy, and he's just so good at being smarmy. And you're like literally, we told Chelsea and I told Megan, we were like, when we were like watching Danny on Mythic Quest, we were like, are we like really attracted to Danny Pooty playing like a jerk right now? Yeah, we are. Yeah, that's how I feel right now. so yeah.
It worked on Annie.
All those characters. I mean,
I know.
He's just just so good. He's so good. So
everyone, Gillian, Yvette. I mean, Yvette also seems like the coolest human being in the world.
Yes, she's a couple people I know have gotten a chance to meet her, and again, say that she's just super nice. And her and Gillian they went to Communicon back in the day when it was, when they were having those, and they attended them, and it was just like, oh, that's just so awesome. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, just nothing but good things I've heard about either of them too.
Everyone but Dan. and Chevy. Yeah, but we already knew that before. I mean, I knew he was at peace before that even started. Before the community started. But oh my god, this has been so much fun. Before we start wrapping it up, Robert is. I think I let you talk a little. Is there anything you had?
You already said everything that I wanted to ask, Chris.
You did a job.
Yeah, I'm like, I lost my voice. I won't talk as much.
I know. I promise.
Fast forward.
It's okay.
I've had to cancel like 5 different speaking events in the last 2 weeks because of my lack of voice. It's just finally almost getting back.
Oh.
No. Old people. No, Jen, this was so much fun. Where can people find your podcast and your freelance work and your writing? And I'm going to definitely take more of a deep dive into your blog because I feel like the more I talk to you, I'm like, oh my god, we're so much of the same people. Yes, people who like to overanalyze pop culture to the umpteenth degree is kind of my thing.
That's my brand. You can find our podcast on wherever you get your podcasts these days. It's pretty much everywhere that people get podcasts. We're the Community Rewatch Podcast, and on Twitter we're at COMM Rewatch Pod, and on Instagram we're at Community Rewatch. You can follow our my freelance site, which is Just About Right. So WRIT. Thank you. Yeah, there it is. And so I have some writers who do reviews of different shows. We have some deep dives. We do some behind the scenes things. We just recently got to do an artisan Zoom call with the artisans who make Dickinson, which is an Apple TV show. So that was real cool. yeah, just go check out our fun stuff. Come say hi. Just hang out with us. We like that.
Excellent. Robert, where can people find you on the old internet?
You can find me on Twitter at RevanJam, and that's pretty much it now.
And I'm at Let's Chat Podcast on all the things, and yeah, I don't use my other ones. Who are we kidding? And check out our other podcasts as well. Past episodes. The last Let's Chat with Chris Revel, we had comedian Chris Gethard. Hey, he was in Don't Think Twice with Gillian Jacobs. So it all
it's a circle.
And it's actually one of my favorite movies. So everyone, thank you for checking this out, and have a good rest of your night.